Alright. Hello everyone and welcome back to Late Night Beats. In this week's episode, I'd like to review the CraftSynth 2.0 from MODAL. Let's get right into it. First of all, let me give you two useful shortcuts. The first one is the init patch. And I know people at MODAL have put a lot of work and effort into those presets and they do sound amazing. But for me, this synthesizer is all about tweaking. So I need to know how to make an init patch. And it's very simple. You press preset, plus and minus. Then it blinks and you have your init patch. The second useful shortcut is selecting a MIDI channel. And you do that by pressing preset and shift and holding it for 4 seconds. Then it blinks and you see you're in here. And then you use plus, minus to go to your channel. And the different keys relate to the different MIDI channels. So this is channel 1, this is channel 8. But then when you want to move up to channel, let's say 9 or 10, press plus in here and you see that they're lit and the unlit is the active one. So I want to go to channel 10, which is the channel I want my model to receive MIDI from the Octatrack. So let's start with the form factor, which actually I really like. It's super small, it's portable, it has batteries, which is very cool. And then it has this very neat gap in here, which is actually super cool because what this means is that you can have, for example, your round go mixer in here and you can plug an instrument like that. Let me show you. Okay. I also love the fact that it has traditional MIDI DIN ports. I hate those jack breakout cables and I think this is a super neat solution. And also it has MIDI through. The output in here can serve as a MIDI through, which means that I can daisy chain a bunch of devices, which is a huge step up from a Volca, for example. I also love the fact that it has sync in and sync out, which means that you can synchronize your Volcas or maybe your pocket operators. The interface is super simple and it's fun. So basically you have the main function in here that's labeled in white, and then you have your shift function. So you press shift, this LED lights up, and then everything that's labeled blue in here is being controlled by the knobs. And then when you press and hold preset, you have the third function, which is marked in gray in here. And of course, gray and blue correspond to the color of those buttons, so it's very easy, it's very intuitive. Another cool thing in here is the LEDs, which sort of tell you about the position of those knobs. So they can work either in absolute values, like in here, or in relative values, positive, negative for bipolar functionalities. And you can also see that it corresponds directly to the app in here, which is cool. And then the app, it's actually super easy, super fun to use, very user-friendly. But the important part is that you don't need it at all. I spent my first week with the model not even touching the app. And then I tried it on the iPhone and it works really well and it's also very beautifully designed. What is particularly cool for me is that sometimes I'm having a hard time picturing an envelope just by using knobs. But with the app, you can see a beautiful visual representation of what's happening with your envelope. This is very nice. And the same with the filter. Especially with the resonance, it can give you a lot of information on what's going on with your resonance. But most importantly, it gives you feedback on the waveforms that you have in here. So now let's talk about the sounds. And let me tell you right now, it sounds amazing and it's punching way above its weight. There's plenty of low-end punch in there and you can check out my test drive video to see how much low-end it really packs. There's also plenty of polish in there. The oscillators sound really rich and really full. So how this works is that you have two oscillators in here that are called waves. So you have two different waveforms that you can mix and you have 9 banks of those waves. So the first wave has 8 banks and the second wave has 9 because you have an additional sine and an additional noise source. So let's check out this noise source first. How you get there is basically you press preset and then tune, which is bank 2. And then you cycle through the banks. And now you're here, but you can't really hear it because you need to go to wave number 2. And you have this mix knob in here. And when you move it all the way to the right, there's going to be wave 2 present. So that's still a sine wave, but now we have to change the wave shape and it's going to get progressively noisier. So you can see it beautifully in the app, of course. And then when you go even further, it's going to get filtered. So this noise source could be great for hi-hat sounds, for example, something like that. Most of the wave shapes are really interesting. Let's hear it. So this is virtual analog. Some other banks that are interesting are MODAL 002, which is the second one in here. Then we have Modal Curated, which are also very interesting. And those are special waveforms that were designed by Modal to really interact interestingly and well with each other using different oscillator mods. So that's Modal Curated right now. So you're already getting some FM-like sounds in here, which is kind of interesting. Another one that's pretty interesting is the format. Where it really gets interesting is with the oscillator modifiers, and you access them by pressing Shift and then the mix knob. And then when you modify the wave, it gets even more interesting if you introduce some tuning differences. But that's not all, because then you have 16 slots of oscillator modifier types, which you access by pressing Preset and Mix knob. So for example, at number 9 we have FM. This gives you a lot of flexibility, but that's only one bank. We have more banks. For example, number 8, window sync. Almost sounds like a filter, which actually makes sense because you're filtering different frequencies inside the wave shape. Then we have the DRES, which is yet another interesting mod type. addition to oscillator modifiers, we also have the spread function, which sort of detunes the oscillators between themselves. And then when you move it a little bit further, then you have the chords. And then on top of that, of course, you have the filter. Which is resonant. And also morphable. That's pretty useful. But then of course the real power is unleashed when modulating those parameters, and there are essentially 8 modulation sources and 36 destinations. When we want to look at the envelope generator in here, we have 3 modes. So you have those 4 knobs responsible for attack, decay, sustain, and release. And then depending on which mode you are, you can be in filter EG, amp EG, or mod EG. Then it controls 3 different envelopes that you have inside of that model synthesizer. So for example, filter, you see that in here in the app. Then we go to amp. You see that here. And then, of course, the mod. Pretty cool. And I have to compliment Model for including a full ADSR inside of the CraftSynth 2.0. So assigning a modulation source to a destination is very easy. You just press and hold the source. In this situation, it's going to be mod EG, and you turn the knob of your destination. In this situation, it's going to be wave 1. And now the interesting part is that the more you turn the knob, the more depth you're going to get on the modulation. You can see it in the app very, very clearly. Right now, I assigned the 3rd envelope to wave number 1. The only little challenge that you get in here is that without using the app, you don't get a lot of feedback regarding the destination. One piece of feedback that you get, however, is when you try and assign a source to an invalid destination, those LEDs are going to blink. Let's try that. Let's take LFO 1 and let's try and assign it to modulation mode. Okay, so you see those LEDs blinking, it means that it's an invalid destination. Another interesting modulation could be LFO 1 to oscillator mod. And then of course we have to add some rate. We can also modify the shape in here. Let's go to random, it's always fun. And you can also change the mode in here to, let's say, free. One of the interesting destinations is filter morphing. So I'm going to set LFO 2 and I'm going to set filter morphing as a destination in here, and I'm going to give it a lot of juice. Then I'm going to change the mode to free because I want this to sort of move around kind of slowly. So you can hear it slowly morphing between low pass, band pass, and high pass. Another interesting destination is distortion. now let's set it to retrigger. And let's set the shape to random. Let's give it a louder rate. Different notes are going to get different amounts of distortion, which actually sounds very, very nice. And then of course, a feature that's super important for me because I love controlling my synthesizers with the octatrack using trig conditions. And this is of course MIDI CC. And CraftSynth 2.0 takes a lot of CCs, and there are a lot of destinations, actually more than there are modulation destinations. I'm going to make a dedicated video on that subject, but I'm going to tell you right now that there are some interesting destinations. Some examples include randomizing patches, modifying the spread function, and then the oscillator to tune, which means that technically you should be able to play chords. And then on top of all that, you have a delay. It's a bit glitchy, it's kind of nice. And you can of course modulate that as well. So all in all, I'm super impressed by the depth of this synthesizer. In this tiny package and at this very convenient price point, they really packed a lot of punch. So essentially, this is a pro-level, super deep synthesizer in a tiny form factor. For anyone who's looking for a powerful portable synthesizer, this is a no-brainer. I also think that it should be super popular with educational institutions because it gives you the opportunity to have real hardware to interact with a real instrument. You can also stream the app to a projector or to a screen, and it sort of teaches you a lot about subtractive synthesis, but much more than that because of the digital option that it has. And I think I can safely say that I would get the CraftSynth 2.0 over any melodic Volca that's available on the market right now. If there's anything that I like to criticize about the synthesizer is the wobbly knobs in here. And I talked to Modal about that, and they said that they chose to use digital encoders in here for several reasons. First of all, they told me that those knobs use minimal friction, which means that they're going to be more durable. They're also more compact than traditional pots, which means that it could be smaller, and also they're endless, which means that they work in this digital preset format rather well. I would still prefer to have more robust feeling knobs, of course, but I understand the rationale behind that. My second tiny criticism in here is that the shift button is a little bit hard to use sometimes. I would much prefer to have a physical button in here that you press and hold, but that's the design philosophy that they have. Alright, so that's it for this episode of Late Night Beats. Let me know in the comments how you like the new CraftSynth and if you had the opportunity to test it yourself. I recommend that you do so. If you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to catch more tutorials, more jams, and more opinions. Also, if you want more content from me, follow me on Instagram at Late Night Beats. And yeah, that's it for this episode. Thank you very much for watching. Have a great night and take care.